Behind every growing business is a team of great people. This is the Hub Podcast, sponsored by Manpower Eastern Indiana. I'm your host, Michael Allen. In each episode, we connect with the people helping build stronger companies and communities across Eastern Indiana. Hello and welcome to the Hub. And today's guest on the Hub is Jon York. He is the new Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Wayne County. And we, and I say we, I mean the community, we're super excited about having Jon back in the area, leading the Boys and Girls Clubs. Jon, welcome to the Hub.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm anxious to chronicle your journey with the Boys and Girls Club. It's been a good one. But before we get into that, let's please share with our followers kind of about yourself, growing up. You're a Richmond native, growing up here, your family, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, grew up here in Richmond, lived here for most of my life, been able to travel out and work in Bloomington and in Rush County since then. Parents from here as well, so Richmond family in Wayne County, surrounding area, Cambridge City as well. Son, who's 20, Jonathan, born on my 22nd birthday, so that's a pretty cool fact, right? Nice birthday present there. So all that, came up here, grew up here in Richmond, went to Richmond Community Schools, graduated from Richmond Adult Education. Everybody always asks you, hey, what year, or did you go to Richmond? What year are you? And I'm always just answer 02, cause that's the year I should have been graduated in, but, not every situation is a great situation to go through the details of, my story there with education, but here's a good long format, and I can tell a little bit about that.
I'd love to hear about it if you're willing to share about it.
No, so I was someone who was a straight A student growing up all the way through 8th grade. I loved school, right? But home life and health problems started hitting me a little harder as I got into high school. And as I got into high school, I only went a couple months. I never earned a credit from Richmond High School.
Okay.
I made a path. I saw my path forward as with the option of a GED.
Mm-hmm.
When I knew you had to be 17 to do that, so I went with the Richmond Adult Education when the semester there in 2000 fall semester. I went in there for some tutoring to get ready to take the test when I turned 17, and the next test was there in early November. I did that for a couple months, and so would have been my fall semester of my junior year. I obtained my GED, and at that same time, I was enrolled at IU East due to an initiative called Take a Course on Us.
Okay.
And so I got to take one course there while I was 16. I started there.
So what course did you choose?
W131, English Composition, with a great professor, Elisa Klappenmeyer, who I was familiar with from her volunteer service at the Boys and Girls Club.
All right.
So I took that course, and for somebody who hadn't been in the classroom for 2 years, that was needed to see that higher education was possible for me. I always had a goal as a young kid. I wanted to be the first person in my family to graduate from college. And, that path took a little longer than right there. It'd be great if I said I just got I obtained my GED. I enrolled in IU East, which I earned free tuition with my GED scores. IU East gave me free tuition. So I enrolled as part-time there that next semester. It would have been the spring of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I went for a few semesters. Life happens when you get out living on your own, and you get rent, and roommate can't pay rent anymore. Your vehicle breaks down, and then you're choosing what to do. And I chose to I was like, I'm going to take one semester off from college. It ended up being a decade, but I ended up finishing and getting my bachelor's degree in business administration in 2016. Long path to get there education-wise, but a lot of life experience in that path.
Yeah, but I would think in your story, there's a lot of encouragement that you can provide to youth. Because, we'll get into it, but you've spent a lot of your career in the Boys and Girls Club, and there's a lot of youth that you've come across, I'm sure, where they can use that kind of encouragement from your story and the path that you took, or just where the kind of life took you, and let them know that they can achieve some things like that in their life as well.
Yeah, you just kind of roll with life as it goes, and it helps me really relate to a wide range of people. this could be kids that I'm working with. It could be their parents. It could be the employees that I hire. And it's saying, hey, you can do this. But when you can say, hey, I'm an example of being able to do this, you can connect a lot easier, and people listen a little more when you're saying, hey, I've actually done this. I'm not just telling you it's possible.
So one thing I have two questions I want to ask, and they're conflicting. So I'm going to ask you what we ask like 99% of our guests on the Hub, as far as my association with employment, with Manpower. We always like to ask our guests, like, what was your very first job that you remember growing up?
Well, my first job was with the Boys and Girls Club. It was the Scout Boys Club at the time. I was 14 years old. I worked the games room and front desk.
Okay.
It was I'd been a longtime club member, and I'd volunteered, and I was like, this is something I'd really like to do. And that was my first job, was working at the club, and just working with people in general was something that I thought was interesting. And I saw a career in this that early. I thought this was going to be my career. And so a little full circle moment being back here.
Yeah. So the kids are club kids that kind of stick with the program, and you get into the teen age. That's kind of a big deal to get to do that job, isn't it? I mean, because not everyone gets to do it, and you have to, I'm sure, show to the unit director or whoever does the hiring. At that time, it was just, you said that it was the Scott Club, which is the club,
the only club at the time.
Today it's a lot different than it was when you were there, as far as facilities that our youth enjoy in Wayne County. But I'm sure that was kind of felt like a big deal, wasn't it? I mean, yeah.
No, it was a heavy competition. Everybody wanted to be, you want to get paid to be at the club because you want to be there anyway. And why not get paid? And that was something that, especially coming from households where there's not a lot of money around, having extra money so even the little things like walking across the street to Jay's restaurant was a big deal, that I had enough money to go buy some chicken and JoJo's, right? No, those were big things. Or I could go to the gas station and buy something, or I could buy something that I wanted at the grocery store, so those were little things that it started out as. Or you want to buy clothes as you get older, right? You want to save up for that because you're not buying back then. They were like, oh, I'm not buying $80 pair of tennis shoes. I wish they were all 80 now. But those are the types of things that you wanted to work. And I wanted to develop the skills because, like I said, I saw a career path because I saw all those people I'd been a part of the club for my whole life at that point, basically. And I saw people who I wanted to be like.
Well, you seem like a pretty young guy to me. We got about 20 years. I got about 20 years on you, when I first was involved with the club, I was going to board meetings at that Scott unit. When you were there, who was kind of like your mentor there? I mean, who was kind of like someone that you looked up to there at the club there back in those years?
The first person I ever looked up to was James Gordon.
Yeah, I remember James. For sure.
He, I don't think he realized it, but he taught me the skills that I needed to be a good father. Because he was compassionate, he was understanding, he had patience, he listened. If you needed something, he was always there. And James, at first, because back then, a big deal was having enough money to get something out of the pop machine. If you had $1, you had to get quarters because they didn't take quarters. And so James had always had a pocket full of change. And I was like, oh, he's the guy that has change. I didn't realize he did that so the kids had to interact with him.
Yeah.
And so after I was there for a little, as a kindergartner, you're thinking that, or first grade, you're realizing who this person is. And then I see that, and I was lucky enough to work with James until he left the clubs back, that'd been early 2000s. But he's a mentor of mine. And then as a teenager, Larry Stone really showed me what program and leadership, importance of service to your community through our Keystone Club.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Daggy was someone who he came to the clubs here in Wayne County when I was 10 years old. He actually was my basketball coach when I was 11 through the club. We retired him. That was his last year coaching basketball. But, and then I learned about business from Bruce. I've always been interested in entrepreneurship ever since about third grade when I was selling creepy crawlers and pencils to people, right? I've always been interested. And so the two things I really enjoyed the most was Boys and Girls Club and business. And Bruce was able to connect those two things for me, and he's still a mentor for me today.
Yeah. Yeah, James and Larry, really two legends of the club, and I remember them when they were working at the club. And James, to your point about, I mean, the guy's a legend. I mean, there's a mural with his picture on it at the Jeffers unit. So, I mean, that you got to be somebody to get a mural of you on the wall.
Much deserved. Nobody better than James to have his picture up there. His connection with kids is something that's how I learned to build connections, was from my interactions with James.
So when you were going to working on that long path to get your degree from IU East, were you always working at the club in some capacity, or did you do some other jobs in between there?
So I worked at the club. When I said my son was born on my 22nd birthday, and I was a unit director at the club. Then I became a unit director right before my 21st birthday. So I got into management pretty early there. But I wanted to make a little bit more money at that time, as I wanted to provide and for my family. I didn't want my son to have to be in childcare all the time, because our hours are, we're working after school hours. Yeah. It's kind of tough to raise a young family working at the club. And so I went into working with my stepdad, who had JD's Cards here in town. And so I worked there for 5 years and we doubled the retail space, really did online sales, created, highest level of power seller on eBay. So really got into just moving a lot of merchandise. I mean, shipping hundreds of items a day with e-commerce. And so I was really interested. I really loved it. Like I said, I've always loved that side of entrepreneurship. It's always been a part of me. But that was, I took my time away from the club to do that. And I still volunteered at the club during the summers during that time when I could. But after about 5 years, I realized I missed working at the club and I had to come back.
That was, I mean, it probably didn't hurt you to step away and do something else and get some other experience. And then sounds like that time away made you realize that going back was something that was really important to you.
Yeah, because I had an idea. I thought knew what I wanted to do at 14 years old. But it's kind of crazy to think that you knew what you were going to do, and trying some different things and getting outside that comfort zone. Because even though the card shop where I was working at was it was the family business, with my stepdad, the club felt like family business for me. I grew up in it. I knew it. It's just intuitive, right? I just know everything that's going on. I knew how to do it. And it was nice to get outside of there and come back. And then in my career with the Boys and Girls Clubs here in Wayne County, after I graduated, I went down to Bloomington. And that was one of those where I wanted to see if I could be successful anywhere, not just where I grew up and I knew everybody. If my success was because I'm good at this job or because I'm good at networking.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead and chronicle, since you hit on that, chronicle your involvement with the Boys and Girls Clubs from there to coming to Richmond, back to Richmond.
So I started there in Bloomington in 2017. I took on a new project. So when I started there, my club that I managed, my unit, was a modified duplex in the housing authority, 2,100 square feet with the downstairs wall knocked out and upstairs wall knocked out. So there's a kitchen that we could serve snack for 20 kids a day, because that's about what attended the club there. Mm-hmm. But the reason I took that job was because we were building a 21,000 square foot facility 1 block away in the housing authority. And I wanted to be the person to open that club, make that transition and open it. And I had not been a part of, I'd been a part here when we opened the Richard E. Jeffers unit, but I was I was a youth development professional. I wasn't in the planning side of things at that time. I was too young. And so I wanted the experience of opening a new building. I wanted the experience of cultivating donors. I wanted those experiences that I didn't have. And so I went there to get those experiences. And I worked in Bloomington, opened that club, and we went from serving 20 kids a day to 100 kids a day like that, overnight.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And inside of a community that is that close knit, I had to really become a part of the community and build relationships on a really deep level really quickly so people would trust me. Mm-hmm. And that was I really loved that job. But it was at a time in my career where I knew I needed to take the next step in my role, which is I took that role more of like, oh, this is what I really want to do instead of what's my next step.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a year and a half. And then I took the position as the chief executive officer for the Boys and Girls Clubs in Rush County. So I held that position from September of 18 through January of this year. And I started here on February 2nd.
So, and is it Bloomington?
Bloomington.
And then in Rushville?
Yep.
You mentioned Bruce Daggy when you took those roles. Was there any phone calls to Bruce? And
yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me if you called him just for get some collaboration and just some advice on stuff.
So I called Bruce. So actually, he was working with the Rush County clubs here in his position of getting them ready to hire their next executive director at the time is what the role was called. And they'd been through a time of transition and honestly, just in transparent, a time of crisis, right? They had a lot of turnover, lack of fundraising. So I asked Bruce, is this a job is this going to end my career if I take this job, or is it possible to be successful here? And he told me that there was the ability to fundraise and there was ability to grow the programs, but it was going to take a lot of work. And that was magic. That was music to my ears. That's what I want to hear. I at that time in my life, I really like it. And I always have. I love the challenge. And it was, again, another new community, a more rural community than I was used to. Rushville's only about 6,500 people, so smaller than any community I'd worked in before, and then especially from moving from Bloomington in a more urban area. And so I thought that was a great way to have some professional development, was to take on another organization where I didn't really know much about the community. I had to learn a lot about agriculture, and I learned about even smaller community, and build those relationships from scratch and use my board members' relationships to build my network out. And that was a great experience. And I gave Bruce a call to ask if I was making a smart move. And he told me that I could be successful if I worked at it. And I'm very proud of where we ended up with Rush County and where they're at right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And it would have shocked me if you said you hadn't had any conversations with Bruce during that time, because he's just his personality and just the way he deals with people. He'd be a great resource to call upon, and he'd be honest with you and encouraging. And I'm sure you had a lot of that from him. Yeah, it's interesting. And you when you were interviewing for the job here and being a board member, we had access to information about you. But one thing that you put in there, and I think it really comes through when talking to you, that your involvement with the club, it's not just a career, a job, but I think especially you going back to your days as a teen, working at the club, it's really been a calling for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've felt like this is like my purpose, right? I've gone through life and gained my experiences so I can best work with the young people. And now I don't directly work with young people as much, but I can train our staff and give them, share those best practices of everything that I've learned over my 20 plus years working in Boys and Girls Clubs. It's my 24th year working in Boys and Girls Clubs. It just seems crazy to think how long I've been involved. And it is something. It just feels right. When I wasn't working here, there was an emptiness. There was a hole. I had to have this engagement, and I love coming to work every day. I don't think that I've had one day where I've dreaded coming to work when I've worked at the Boys and Girls Clubs. And like I said, that's 24 years of being happy to go to work.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people probably know, our organization here locally is very strong, very successful. But if you talk to other people within the organization, I think the Boys and Girls Club of Wayne County is seen as a highly effective and successful club on a statewide, regional, maybe even on the national level. And you've been to some of those meetings. And I can't help but think that the reason for the success that we've been able to enjoy there's multiple reasons, but I think part of it's really that we've had a lot of people in leadership here at our club that it's been their calling. That if your heart's in it that way, it shines through in the way you deal with people and manage the organization. I mean, do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, no, I think we're very mission driven, from the staff to the board. Everybody involved is here for the right reasons, right? When you're hiring employees, they're there to make an impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, they're probably not going to be the job for them. They're not going to, we try to be competitive with pay, but we're not always going to be at the top of the market. And you have to really love the job to, some people are like, oh my gosh, how do you work with that many kids at one time? And it's like, it's easy. And those are the people, right, that can do that. And the board members of, how do you, how have you been on the board for so long? Or how do you do keep up with all these special events? And it's because it's for the kids, right? The mission that we have of developing our young people is an easy one to get behind. And I think we have had a lot of great people, and we do have a lot of great people currently. Our team's amazing when you talk about our staff and our board, our trustees, our volunteers. Everybody is there to help the kids. And it helps us too. We get fulfillment out of that, and we're happiness and we're full. And, that's what fills my cup, is that feeling when you have that club member and you get to see them years later and they talk about how the club changed their life or saved their life. Or you hear a parent saying they get to go back to school, or they get to get a better job because they had the club there. Those types of things keep you going. And I think that's why everybody works there.
You touched on it a little bit, but I mean, when you work for a not-for-profit, it's not necessarily going to be, in a lot of cases, a very highly compensated job as it compares to the private sector. But I do feel like through their trustees, our board, executive committee at the club, there has been a lot of attention made to try to be as competitive and generous with how we compensate people that work at the club. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and it's a priority. I shared that at our all staff meeting a couple of weeks ago, that our priority is to make sure we're raising funds so we can pay our people, because we want to professionalize our profession, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think about, if you want to work with kids, you have to go into like the school system or something. No, there's many options in our community.
Yeah.
Where we need people who want this to be their career so we can continue to be successful. And we have to make it where people can stay in this career. And so that is a key priority for me, is to continue to increase wages for our staff, especially our direct service staff, who are day in and day out interacting with our kids. And, that's something that I've done in the past is, from, looking at your org chart, but you got to start from the bottom up with pay, to build that successful organization.
Yeah. I mean, I pulled some numbers from our 2025 report. And so the Boys and Girls Clubs of Wayne County, we serve more than 3,000 youth annually. And we serve about 1,872 youth through membership, and another almost 1,200 through community outreach through our 7 facilities. It takes a lot of people to do that.
Yeah. We have a staff of close to 80 right now, 39 board members, 12 trustees, numerous volunteers. So no, it's a good sized organization.
Do you think so? I feel like it's a little bit uncommon for a community our size to have so many locations.
Yes, it definitely stands out. And I think that's why you mentioned earlier, we're seen as a leader in our state, in our region, in the country, because we've been able to be so successful in a smaller community. You will not see this many Boys and Girls Clubs in the facilities we have in communities of our size really anywhere else.
And they're so strategically located, and we didn't. Well, the Jeffers unit we built,
yes, but
the other units that we have, and I'm referring primarily to the McDaniel and the First Bank unit within Richmond, is that those were existing facilities already, and they were in neighborhoods where we can really reach a lot of youth that are so close to where our units are, and with McDaniel in the First Bank unit, and then just our ability to reach out through our Wayne Bank and our Hagerstown units. I mean, I think way back when you were in the Scots, I mean, we weren't really servicing kids out in the county.
No.
And I know that was a strategic plan for many, many years, but I mean, it's really happening now.
Yes. And well, when I was a club kid, and even when I first entered our Youth of the Year competition, we were still the Scott Boys Club of Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
And I said when I was 15 years old, I wanted to be the executive director of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Wayne County. That came a year later because I knew we were talking about it, but we weren't serving girls, right? And we weren't serving Wayne County. We were serving Richmond. We had one location. Then we opened Central, which was our second location. We weren't serving Wayne County yet, and we knew we could. Just because someone lives in a smaller community doesn't mean they don't need the Boys and Girls Club. It might need it more, right? Because they're more likely to have to commute to work and things of that nature. And so, no, I just was out visiting Hagerstown and the Wayne Bank units end of last week. Or actually, no, sorry, it was this week. Out again visiting, and you see the need. You see club kids all over Wayne County. It's great to see all these club kids. It's not just something you get because you live in Richmond or you live in town or one side of town in Richmond. Because I can tell you how hard it was to get from the west side of Richmond to the south side to the club every day when there wasn't busing. A lot of long walks or bike rides, right? And a lot of people want their kids doing that nowadays. And so having those strategic locations ensures that we can serve the most kids possible.
I remember when Ann Pennington, I don't know if you remember that name, she called me. I mean, we were on the board, and I think she was pretty sure she was surveying other board members of how they felt about becoming a Boys and Girls Club. And I remember her calling me, and when she first said it, to be honest, it felt kind of foreign. I just wasn't thinking that scope because I thought, man, we there's so many at-risk boys, and I hate to lose our focus of that, but really, I mean, it's been such a great thing, that change has been, and that we're just reaching all kids in that way, and it's probably been and having those girls has really enhanced the club tremendously. But it's been that way for a long time now.
1999.
Yeah.
And even before that, we were serving girls at the Scott Boys Club on team nights. They were allowed to come on team nights only on Monday nights. So that was something that I think I'm thankful for being able to go through the history of the organization like that. I've been able to see the organization grow from, having one or two staff in a building with a bunch of boys running around to adding programs to what we do now. It's just night and day if you would have seen what it looked like when I was a club member there in the early 90s to what it is now.
So when I read through our report, it says we have about almost 1,900 that we serve through membership. I'm assuming that they're members.
Yes.
But we only average about 500 a day. I was meeting with a client yesterday, and it seems like anytime you talk about certain things, about changes, the pandemic always comes up. And I don't know. I think it's just such a huge part in our nation's history, and it has such profound effects that I think still it's just always going to be something you look back to. But I still, so we're only having about 30% of our membership on average. I mean, they all come at some time, but we're not averaging 1,800. We're averaging 30% of that number. So, but I think a lot of those, the average attendance went down after the pandemic, and because we had more kids coming.
Yes. And
then because of that, there was different things that affected people staying home. I mean, I know it's a topic of conversation all the time about trying to get the daily attendance up. I mean, you're not new to the kind of work that you're doing, but you've only been here a short time still. And is that part of on your mind? we were probably already working on it, but what are your thoughts about having that number up, or is it important that it's up? I don't know.
Yeah, I think, in pre-COVID, we're serving, 600 and some, like 625, I think is what we were serving there in 2019 per day. And a very simple goal of more kids more often, and a lot of things that go into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's something that's front of mind because we need more kids in the building because that's when we know we're making the impact. And I want everybody to have the opportunity to be a Boys and Girls Club member, and I know that everybody can use the services that the Boys and Girls Clubs provide, even if it's not on a daily basis. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Power suggestion.
No, yeah. But we have to continue to try to serve more kids. We have the space to serve more, even importantly right now, Now, could we serve our whole membership on a daily basis right now? No, we don't have the facilities for that. But could we increase that membership up by 25%? Yeah, we could, easy. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have some initiatives coming out like lowering our age to 5-year-old kindergarten instead of requiring them to be 6 years old. I think that'll really be a benefit to our families. You sign up for kindergarten, you sign up for the Boys and Girls Club. I think that will help us see a increase in average daily attendance, focus on our teen programs, and retaining our tween age kids as they become teens. And a big role in that's going to be our life and workforce readiness programs. Teens, when I was a teen director for a long time, or when I was a unit director and ran teen nights, I always said we needed to have friends, food, and Wi-Fi to make sure we had teens in the building. And that's been a long time, and I make sure we still have all those things. But I also think we have to be the place that's teaching them how to make money. Let's develop your job skills. Let's find you an opportunity to help with our community, get with partners so we can teach you those skills so we can help you get into jobs, and like I said, those soft skills, I'm sure that's something, you're familiar with, making sure that everybody gets those skills. And it doesn't just start when they're of age of being hired. It starts at 6 years old. You're in first grade, you can be in our Indiana Kids program, and we're looking at career exploration. And then that career exploration matures into skill development.
Well, one of those programs that we're involved in is WIN. Well, Work Initiative Network. Mm-hmm. And so part of what they do at our office is the kids come in and we talk to them about applying for work and what it's kind of, since our business is staffing, about how, we place people into jobs and what they can do to apply for a job. And so I've always enjoyed hosting them to come and talk, because I think that's where we can serve these kids. Because it's not an indictment on their parents, but I just don't think they get all that information as much as they can. And not all of our kids, but that come to the club, but we always say that they're the kids that need us the most. I forget how to say that right, but that's how we can really help them, is help to prepare them for when they become adults and need to find a job, or that's what we hope that all of them are going to do: go off to school,
career focus, right?
Yeah, get into employment, providing for themselves.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think, like programs like WIN are key. We have to continue to grow those programs, if that's in numbers or what we're offering. We have to keep developing that and growing. Anybody can use the Boys and Girls Club, because no matter who you are as a parent, you can't provide everything that we offer. No matter if you're the most affluent and you're not going to have the time. You're not going to be able to have the resource. You can't do that. You can't be in all those places once you can't do all those things. And so, but like, as you mentioned, especially those who need us most. And like I said, I'm an example of that kid. And I believe that it only takes one generation to change the trajectory of a family. And those skills that we build can help our kids be that generation.
The thing that I wish, and maybe you've got some advice, I've been a part of these at different times. We brought in youth to not just our office, but help to bring them into other companies and whatever. And there is a little bit of deer in the headlights thing with the kids in there. And I'm not sure. I wish I could figure out a better way to get them engaged. It's not that they're not, but I just think this like, well, I'm only 15 or I'm only 16 years old, and trying to make it relevant to them at that time is tough. And when you're young, you think you have so much time, yes. And not thinking about adult things like that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it starts with starting younger, right? And you're thinking about that career even younger, and you're thinking about what the possibilities are. And then our programs like our Money Matters, like you're budgeting what it's like in high school, what it's like in college, what it's like as an adult. Mm-hmm. And you have to complete those 3 different budgets. It makes you think about those things. It makes you think, how am I going to provide if I have 2 kids, I'm going to have to make more money, those types of things. And so I think that's a great way to get them thinking about that earlier, is just incorporate into our programming, and also just being transparent with kids of what we're going to need or what the needs are, and how they can get there. Mm-hmm. It's one thing showing them what they can be, let them know what that career path is. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to go to a 4-year college or university. You can go get a skill, like a trade, right? You can do that, and you can complete that pretty quickly. You can get a certification. We want all of our kids thinking about careers, not jobs. And that's the mindset. And that's going to take a little bit of, and I think we've been working on that for years, but it takes a long time to change everybody's mindset into, this is what I'm going to do for a career. And I can start looking at that when I'm a younger kid.
Yeah, I see it all the time at Manpower. I mean, if these kids coming up would get into the trades, they would find themselves employed and have actually options.
Yes.
Have multiple companies that would want their skills. But I wish we could really just get that out even more and more, because I think there's so much opportunity there.
And that's something that I started looking at, is how can we partner with like unions to talk about their trade? Like if we're looking at, pipe fitters, or we're looking at the welders, or, they're becoming a plumber, whatever it may be, talking about what the career path is and how you can get there. And it always helps when we show salaries of jobs, mm-hmm. right? Kids get interested. They see that salary and they're like, oh, this person can make this. Yes, you can make a really good living doing this, and you can enjoy it. Or you want to run a business, where you can run one of these businesses. You don't just have to be the one doing the physical work. You can also, some companies are larger. You can be different parts of it. Like we talk about, a kid talks about wanting to go work at one of our factories, but they don't think about like HR or what the other aspects of that, sales, what they could do. They just think of, oh, I'm going to go stand on the line. That's not the only opportunity. There are a lot of opportunities inside each of our employers, and we have to get them to think that way.
We've talked a lot about people, but unfortunately, we need money. There's always that money part, and right now, to run our programs in Wayne County, we almost need like $3 million. And so, can you just share with our followers how we go about bringing in that money for operations, and what are some of the ongoing challenges that with the funding, that, because it's just something we always have to keep our eye on. And I think it'd be good for people to understand that part of it.
Yeah. And to realize that we only charge $15 a year for a membership is something that, we're not raising the money off of everyone who uses our services. We're raising money from the community through donations, through a number of entities, through grants, if that's local, state, regional, national opportunities, government, foundations, whoever that may be. We're making most of our money up through donations and grants. Mm-hmm. And we look at other revenue streams that we can utilize and come up with, but that's where we bring the money in. We have to raise about $3 million every year to support what the number of kids we're serving now. We want to serve more kids. We need to bring more money in. And so that's, I guess that's the main point of my job, is to continue working on that, fundraising, working with our teams with grants. Like I said, building out teams to do that. 1 or 2 people can't raise the money that we need. It takes a team. The board members are involved in fundraising, and we have to do that as a collective, just like we do everything else. It takes that solid, strong team. our community, the reason that we've grown inside this community is because the community buys in. The community supports the club. Without community support, we wouldn't be able to be the size that we are. We wouldn't be able to serve the number of kids that we serve. We wouldn't be that outlier when you look at communities of our size. So through that process, we're constantly, looking at opportunities when it comes to grant cycles, and what all goes into a grant, and they're not the most sustainable source of funds. So, but there were our big opportunities come. So you have the grant reports, you have to write it first, and you have the grant reports and managing those finances. And sometimes those reimbursements don't come in, or the grant doesn't come in, the reimbursement grants don't come in for, 6 months, 9 months. You have to float that money out there in large sums of money. So that's a lot of work. Also on the fundraising side, more sustainable with individuals in businesses and foundations. Because we're more likely to not change. Our grants can change with administrations, the federal, and we've gone through that. I think the president's releasing his recommendation for a budget today and eagerly watching that. So there's a lot that goes into looking at a budget for the Boys and Girls Club that I think a lot of people wouldn't think about.
Yeah, I mean, to think that we want to keep counting on the government to sustain our organization, I think that's naive, especially when we have a government that's so much in debt as it is. It's logical to think that there's always going to be, or at least they should be, thinking about ways that they can be more efficient. And I think the more that we can not rely on government funding. And I think there's been we've been working on that
Yes.
Organization, and I think part of that's our own foundation.
Yeah,
right?
we have. So and we have endowed. We have an endowment. Yeah, we have an endowment, and the goal is to grow that endowment. And the goal of growing that endowment is to not have a reliance on government funding. I mean, that's the end goal. If we, that's how I would put it. I don't know if that's the official way that we put it, but that's how I feel about it. Is because those government opportunities, if we can grow that endowment, those government opportunities become boost to the program, or when we can grow and do something new, or give us a couple years to start something and then build it, instead of having to rely on them. And yes, like you said, we've been working in that direction. We'll continue to work in that direction. And it's important. And not just important, it's vital that we do that, because if government grant ends, we have to make those changes. And in the end, if we're losing funding, we are going to have to not be able to serve as many kids. And that's exactly what we don't want to do.
I think it's, I wrote a note here. I think it's typical that a new leader organization comes in with some fresh ideas and visions. I mean, it would shock me if someone came in. What are some of the things that you bring in as the new, executive officer, chief executive officer at the club? And what are some of the things that are kind of on the forefront for you?
Yeah. So, 2 months in, I'm still kind of in my observation phase, but I've had my ideas and going through, but I think one of the big things that I want to do is just really improve our quality of our developing our staff. Right. And so to do that, we have to, like I talked about, increasing pay, what we want to do, but also to increase pay, you can't just add more money. You have to get creative with that. So, is it operating leaner, right? And focusing to those people that we have, that we're investing in them more instead of more positions. Make sure we stay within our safety ratios and everything, but developing those staff members to be able to hire and promote with them within when we need to hire for a new position. Something that I've been looking at and working on, is something that we're doing right now, is how to do that. Also, like I mentioned, the 5-year-old kindergartners, being able to serve more a demographic there. Looking at ways, can we serve older teens? An idea that I haven't really discussed yet, or I think it might not be in the next year or two, but it's got to be in our future, is how can we serve those young adults as well? What is there for our 19 to 24-year-olds that aren't in school, right? Is that the area? That is where, looking at statistics, that's where people start to have more mental health struggles as well. They lose that detachment of high school or college. Yeah. And so could a place like the club be that person that they have, keep that connectiveness with them as they build or get ready to start out and build a family or build a career of where they're going. So those are some ideas. That's an idea, just I haven't really shared that one out yet, but that's where I'm thinking is
you heard it here first.
what is, what the club doesn't have to just be, after school for school age children, right? Or like, I think a lot of people think of the club, oh, it's for elementary kids after school. We're much more than that. And making sure that everybody understands that, I think, is one thing that we have to do. And just keep getting the word out. Keep getting the word out of what we do and the impact that we have. And I think our impact celebration is going to be just, we had one, this year, and next year will be our second. And I think that is going to be the event where we keep bringing back people who've been here at the club and talk about the impact it's had on their lives. Yeah. And you get to see that full circle moment of, like, I remember when that kid was, the youth of the year, or when they were younger even, and now get to see how they're a productive member of our community, and that they credit the club for a lot of that success. So I think just that as part of it is just being that walking billboard myself, but putting more of those billboards out there of people moving around, like identifying it's a club.
But that encourages people in the community. Like, yeah, that's an organization I want to connect with. I want to support, because they can see the reality of what's taking place there and how it is changing lives and for the good. Is there anything else that probably you want to kick out that would be important for our followers to see or hear?
Yeah, I would, if you have kids, or somebody that has kids, like, if you haven't given the Boys and Girls Club a try, give it a try. Any of our locations, it's going to be a great experience. And we just don't change the lives of the kids that we work with. It can be staff members, right? I mean, we have multiple staff members I hired as part-time staff when I worked here 9 years ago that are still on in our organization, and multiple that are on the leadership team. Like, that is something that we do. We help develop people as well. And we are an employer. And I think that if somebody's looking for work in the youth development space, or they've ever thought about it, we're a place to try it out. Like, come see what we can do, and that there is a career in youth development, and we need more youth development professionals.
I think on our website, that's bgcrichmond.org. On the homepage, there's various links for people if they want to donate money, if they want an employment opportunity, if they're interested in volunteering. That's all there for them to connect and get that information. So I would encourage folks, if you are interested, to go to bgcrichmond.org, and you'll be able to get that information. And I'm sure anybody can just call the club and ask the questions, and they'll be directed to the right person as well.
Yes, we're always available. And yes, all those opportunities are available there on our website. And also follow us on social media there. Our Facebook's very active.
Yep.
And you can search for us, Boys and Girls Clubs of Wayne County there, and follow along. You get to see what the kids are doing on a daily basis. You see the pictures of kids, and also all those employment opportunities and things like summer coming up.
Well, welcome back to the community. And thank you for what your team and everyone is doing to make a difference in Wayne County. I think the impact that you're making is so much greater than people realize. And the way you can find out is to do what Jon said, or check out the website, go to the social media platforms, and you'll see it right there before your eyes. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
Enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to the Hub Podcast, sponsored by Manpower Eastern Indiana. If your business needs great people, or you're looking for your next opportunity, contact Manpower Eastern Indiana today.